Saudi Arabia is trying to distance itself from accusations that it attempted to block a young woman's effort to flee from her family and seek asylum abroad. 18-year-old Rahaf Alqunun captured global attention by live tweeting every twist and turn in her story after she was detained by Thai authorities at Bangkok airport and then asked for asylum in Australia. She says her family will kill her if she returns to Saudi Arabia. Her father and brother are now in Bangkok. The Saudi embassy in Thailand denies its officials took her passport and says she was stopped by airport authorities because she violated local laws. Australia's Home Affairs Department says it'll carefully consider any application for a humanitarian visa if the UN finds that she is a refugee. A short time ago, I spoke with Radha Stirling, a human rights lawyer and the founder and CEO of the group Detained in Dubai. It's an organisation that helps people unfairly treated by the justice systems in the Middle East. And I asked her how common Rahaf Alqunun's plight is.
Well, it seems increasingly common these days. We've had a number of people contact us over the past few years, a number of women in particular, who are seeking either to escape situations like Rahaf has described in her testimony, essentially where she feels that she's been abused and is seeking her freedom. There's a lot of people in that situation, but I mean, her case is fantastic that she was able to escape, but then there's so many people who want to do the same thing, but trying to escape from Saudi Arabia as a woman is an incredibly difficult situation or a possibility. I mean, it's almost like a dissident from the Cold War trying to escape from the Soviet Union. So I think what we're seeing now is that now that she's actually made it to Thailand and that it's got international attention, we're going to have to see some changes happening in the Middle East.
Well, Saudi Arabia's embassy in Bangkok denies its officials took her passport. They say she was stopped because she violated the law. Do you think that this case will actually force any changes in Arab countries with how they deal with women?
I mean, we can see clearly that there is going to have to be some change in the Middle East, and particularly in Saudi and the UAE, where women have been, essentially oppressed in the sense that they have male guardians. We've had Sheikh Mohammed recently being accused of abusing his own daughter, and therefore, I think with the case of Khashoggi and the criticism that Saudi Arabia has received recently, and the changing of the guard there, the shuffling of their cabinet, I think what we're going to see is a reduction in the aggressive stance that they have taken in these sort of cases.
This 18-year-old made her bid for freedom when she arrived in Thailand. What's Thailand's record when it comes to dealing with cases like this?
Well, I think that in this case they chose, I mean, she obviously was headed to Australia, but the Middle East knows that they have a fairly reasonable relationship with Thailand where, I mean, we have Bahrain having recently jurisdiction shopped and chosen Thailand as the country where they would attempt to extradite Hakim from, because they know that Thailand is going to be more cooperative than a Western country or, Australia, where they really should have requested his extradition from. They knew that they would fail, and they knew that Thailand would be more cooperative, and that's why he's still in prison. I think that Thailand is only really cooperating in this case because there has been such a social media outrage, and there has been so much government intervention, and with human rights organizations, I think they had no choice but to allow her to stay in Thailand at least while the United Nations interviews her.
Australia's Home Affairs Department says it'll carefully consider any application that Rahaf Alqunun makes for a humanitarian visa if she's found to be a refugee. What do you think Australia should do in this case?
I think in this case, I mean, when you have serious allegations of either abuse or torture, and we're talking about a young woman now, it would be absolutely splendid if all of the nations of the world actually abided by the treaties that they have signed with the United Nations against, human rights violations and torture. I think that it's important that she is granted asylum because there is not necessarily a way to prove what she's saying is accurate, but if she is sent back to the countries that she is fleeing from, we can't protect people from this sort of behaviour that's happening in the Middle East. And we have, India recently having apprehended Sheikha Latifah, who was also claiming asylum. They decided to send her back to the country that she was fleeing from abuse and torture. And if countries are willing to do that, we can't criticise Saudi for not protecting women and not protecting human rights if we are willing to be complicit in sending them back to those very countries.
Do you think this case may encourage other people to try to make it to a country like Thailand, for example, and then claim asylum and try to get to a place like Australia, Canada, or the UK or the United States?
Well, certainly, I think this case is really going to highlight everywhere in the Middle East that it's a possibility that if one manages to escape their guardianship, manages to get on a plane and go somewhere, that they might actually be successful in claiming asylum, and we might see more people trying to do it. But I think what needs to happen here is a little bit of pressure from the international community and various countries for Saudi and other countries to upgrade their protection for women and for human rights.
Human rights lawyer Radha Stirling.